Welcome to A Balanced Life with Dr. Jacquie here at Black Star Network. And today we're talking all things not only balance, but what does leadership look like? I know we've all got our own various styles, the way we approach things. There's certain leaders that we like, leaders we don't like, and people that literally sometimes just get on our nerves because their leadership styles runs up against who we are, what we believe, and how we approach the things we do in life. Today, we're joined by our Level Up coach, Dr. Tierney, and also Dr. Jennifer Bishop. Ladies, welcome in.
Good morning. Hello.
Hey, y'all. So, I kind of just want to dive right in because, as people have gone back into the office, they're trying to manage being there, being at home. Certain leadership styles seem to clash. And so I'm going to ask right off the top, not only what is your leadership style, but name a leadership style that literally irks your nerves. Because we all have one or two, or maybe three, or maybe it's a person that pops into mind while y'all are watching us, that says, there's something about the way the person talks to me, communicates with me, dumps instead of delegates. There's all these things that fall into this leadership gap that really cause us to have pause when we think about who we want to be our bosses or where we want to go and work or the teams that we serve on. So who's jumping in?
I'll go for Dr. Bishop. Go and take my answer. So my leadership style, from what I've been told, is a bit of a blend. It is a blend of transformational leadership and servant leadership. So I am that type of leader that's going to inspire you, empower you. I mean, it goes right in line with what I do as a coach, for you to be able to take the initiative and step out there and, be able to take charge and, and do it. Also servant leadership in the sense of how can I help you do it? How can I help you be your best self? How can I help you grow and flourish and thrive, in this position? So I'm definitely that type of leader. Now, in terms of the leadership style that kind of grinds my gears a little bit, it's that authoritative leadership style. Because a lot of times, not to say that there's not a time and a place for an authoritative leadership style. I mean, all leadership styles have their time and their place, right? But a lot of time with the authoritative leadership style, that there's a level of sometimes aggression. That's where when you were saying earlier, kind of about the belittling, like I'm the authority in here. I'm the smartest person in the room. Do as I say. Don't worry about what I'm doing. Like that type of micromanaging, that type of leadership style that just thinks they all of that in a bag of chips just because they got the title and just because they're in this position and really don't really care about their supporting cast. That's the leadership style that just kind of leaves much to be desired for me.
I can concur. I think that as we think about who we are as women, how we navigate our spaces, there's the leadership style. There's also the gender of the person, who's projecting toward us with the microaggressions and all of those things. Dr. Bishop, what do you have to say about that? Because in the space where you lead and you lead others and young people, you're guiding and gathering and helping people go out to be better at leadership.
Yeah. I have an adverse reaction to micromanagement. And so because I don't like it, I don't give it. I think that it is about knowing who you're leading. It's about spending time with them, getting to know, because you're building a culture, not just persons are their competencies, their cores, their futures, where they want to go. Then you are able to delve deeper into how they can help you grow as you help them grow. I think the best thing that I've found in persons who have mentored me, who have helped been my upline and managed me, is that they understood that there was a next level to this. There were phases to not only where I was positioned, but the persons who were my downlines, who I was positioning. And so getting to know that person, making sure that our cores align when it comes to where we have the desire for the company to go, where we want to go. And so making sure that, persons, we're speaking the same language, one band, one sound. And then understanding that there is a power in what I love to talk about is delegation. We've got to build trust factors, and that's the only way delegation is going to work.
So both of you talk to us a little bit about trust and its role in, we lead people, we manage processes, and oftentimes people get those things twisted. We want to manage people, try to push their buttons and get them to do what we want in the workplace, in our organizations, in families, however they may find themselves. But that trust comes from people feeling safe. Dr. Tierney, talk to us about that a little bit, about how do we build trust and safety? Because if I don't trust you, I don't feel safe around you with my gifts, my talents, and all of that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad you brought up when you said in families, because a lot of times when we start talking about a leadership capacity, we often think in the workplace. But you are a leader right in your home, right in your community, right on your block, in your neighborhood. So it's not just for the professional setting, it's for your personal setting as well. And the number one way to start to build trust is to earn that trust. People don't owe you their trust. They don't owe you like, oh, just because you gave them your word. Like, are you trustworthy? Check your character. Are you honest? Do you function with humility? All of those things go into the building of the trust and the building of that safe space. What is your capacity and your emotional intelligence level? All of those things are important. Yes, even in the professional workplace. If you are not emotionally intelligent, then you're going to bomb, on your job, in that leadership role, because you have to be able to hold space for people. You have to be able to, listen to what they're telling you and not just, overrun them and be like, oh, ain't nobody worried about that. Oh, you need to just get over that, and things that we don't think, like just those little things that I just said that and that triggered somebody just right there in me saying it, because a lot of times we don't realize how that little statement or those little phrases or the eye roll or just the little things like that is what robs people of being able to feel safe with you, and thus undermines the trust that they can build with you. So if we're talking about trust, we have to go all the way down to your character. Who are you when you show up in the room, when you show up in that relationship, when you show up on that job, when you show up in that home with your family? All of those things that you bring to the table either build trust or erodes the trust.
Absolutely, Dr. Bishop. These conversations that we're having right now get us into a space of, we do talk a lot about emotional intelligence and that ability to delegate. Talk to us for a moment about not only emotional intelligence, but emotional stability, because there's a difference between being mature enough to handle the work, but also you have to have that emotional capacity to not necessarily just fly off the handle, but be able to even receive instruction and direction and understand the work that's going. I think that's a great way to say it. When people in our spaces don't have emotional stability, how can it upset the balance of what we're trying to accomplish as leaders?
Those are huge words and important words. So emotional intelligence is something that we are supposed to come with, but we are often underdeveloped in that, right? And so if we're underdeveloped and we're coming into a culture that may not have the leadership that it needs, then there's a toxic environment that we have already entered, and now we're contributing factors to it. So as leaders, it is on us to make sure that we set the tone. We'll set the budget, we'll set the forecast, we'll set everything else, but are we taking the time to set the cultural environment, the safe environment where persons can come in and they can learn how they're going to go and work in these roles? We have HR manuals, we have all of these things, but we're not using them to their full potential. We focus on the policy and procedures of how, you're supposed to send this and do that and do that. But have we taken the time to say, this is how we're going to operate in this environment? I don't know what your environment is like at home, but in this environment, in order for my profitability to hit where I need it to go, I need to make sure that my company, my environment that I have my staff in, is one where they feel safe, they feel seen, they feel heard and respected. And so when I've been able to do that, I've seen things grow. I made my persons partners. I've made persons who have worked with me know that they are contributing factors, because respect has to be given, but it also has to be earned. And so if I want respect, I'm going to give respect to everybody who is in there. And so when persons who may work in various levels see that there is respect from the highest peak down to the places where everyday activity is not always seen, it makes a difference. It makes a difference because leadership stands up and says, this is how this ship is going to sail. And ship is going to sail because I'm going to show you how it goes. And practicing, participating in it, it helps tremendously.
Absolutely. I'm going to jump to break early. When we come back after the break, let's talk about what it looks like for us to be able to not only lead in the spaces where we are, but also give us the opportunity to really thrive in the places where we are. Did you know that there's this thing called quiet quitting? Let's talk about that when we come back, because I think I may have done that at some point in my early life. We'll be back in a moment after the break.
I'm Brittany Noble, Midwest-born, HBCU educated with experience in newsrooms across the country. I've teamed up with Roland Martin to bring to you The Breakdown. This isn't just news. It's our stories, our voice, our community. Join me for The Breakdown, Monday through Friday at midday, only on the Black Star Network.
Welcome back, everybody. And as you can tell, it is very important that you are in a safe environment, that you're seen in your environment, that you're heard in your environment. And as Dr. Jennifer Bishop and Dr. Tierney have talked about, we are in this space of trying to determine what it means to be a leader in now times. Welcome back, ladies. So let's continue this flow of thought and what it looks like and what it means for us to be able to provide not only safe environments, but when people, ladies, don't feel seen and heard, there's this thing called quiet quitting. And I'm going to raise my hand on that because I recall probably in my late 20s, I took a job at a bank and I didn't feel seen, heard, or safe going through all the protocols about what it means to potentially be robbed, figuring out what we're supposed to do when we're on the front cash line, and just didn't feel like I was getting the responses that I needed. So I went to lunch. And guess who never came back? So I say that to say that, yeah, I think I was a quiet quitter on that particular job. And, it's like, yeah. So this generation, we're good at talking about ghosting and quiet quitting without really trying to fully understand. I think what I learned from that experience was that maybe I should have gone to talk to someone. But I also didn't want to have an early firing on my resume. And so I really wrestle with that. So when we think about why people do quit and not come back to jobs, is it us? Is it them? Or is it both? Let's talk about that for a moment. So where do we stand on people just kind of disappearing?
First, let's talk about what quiet quitting is and all the ways that it shows up. So Dr. J, I think you just quit. That was I'm out, peace out, Girl Scout. That was a quit. You just did it quietly, but you quit quietly. But a lot of times quiet quitting, it can look like you're still there. You still at the job. You still clocking in. You still showing up. But you finna scroll Facebook for the first hour. You not gonna go above and beyond. You're going to go to the meeting. You're not going to take notes. You're not going to offer suggestions. You're going to hear them say something that's wrong, but you're not going to correct them. You're not like, that's really that quiet quit. You're spending all of your time after lunch from 3 to 5 o'clock scanning LinkedIn, looking for new jobs. Like that's the quiet quitting where your body can still be there, but you're really not there. You're present, but you have no presence, just a job. You can quiet quit on yourself. You can quiet quit on your marriage. You can quiet quit on your relationships with your family, long before you stop going to the family reunion, okay? So I think it's important that we understand what quiet quitting is, all the ways that it shows up before we can really get to the root of, okay, why do we quietly quit? That's an internal thing because there's something in us that just shuts down. There's something in us that says, like you said, Dr. J, either this isn't a safe space. I've tried to say something. I tried to address the issue and I'm not being heard, or I was made to be out the villain, the victim of whatever it was, or I was made to be the bad guy, the target. So why say anything, And so there's a lot of things that go into this quiet quitting that is more than just the actual leaving of that place or leaving of that relationship or ghosting, the person or the job. It's also a very emotional process that happens long before we put in our notice, long before we go to lunch and don't come back, long before we go for milk and don't come back to the house or whatever it is. It happens long before then because it happens in here, long before anyone ever sees it out here.
All very valid. So Jennifer, when we think about those things, are there missed opportunities, leadership time, mentor time, office hours? If quiet quitting is happening internally before other people see it externally, who addresses it? The person feeling it or the person that they work for?
So I have to admit, I don't do, and I've never done quiet quitting. If I'm gonna quit, I'm gonna let you know, because there's a reason that I'm quitting, and I think that you need to feel it too. So if I'm upset, I want you upset as well. But as I learned that about myself, and as I did it, the loud quitting, I'm gonna let you know quitting. Also recognize when I started my own organizations, I didn't want people just to clock in. I wanted persons to also check in with them. I did not want to replicate where I come from. I wanted to change the narrative, because if leadership doesn't do it, who will? Your base, your biggest work, your workforce, the group that helps you get to where you need to go has got to be a group that you invest in as well. And so I think it's important that there is reciprocal investment. I don't want you just because you can help my bottom line. I want it because I don't want turnover. I don't want people to come in and stress out. It's already going to be a stressful environment. There are going to be things that, you're going to stay late. You're going to come in early. I think it should be a place in which you feel comfortable in doing that. And if it ever becomes a place that it's not, let's have the courageous conversation. Because I had to have the courageous conversation. So no, I don't quietly quit. Whether it be a client that it's time to part ways, or whether it be a staff member or employee that, is no longer working. Let's have the conversations, because that helps with emotional intelligence. What are you running from? Why are we ducking and dodging? Let's talk about it. And so not only may it separate this relationship, but hopefully it helps build other relationships, and it helps you be bolder in what you want and what you need in your next phase of life.
So y'all know our audience, and I can already hear them saying, I don't like confrontation. And every conversation doesn't have to be confrontational. How do we help our viewers get to a space of saying, here are a few talking points that you can use when you walk in, why it's important to have a script of what you want to say when you go into the office, why you're scheduling the meeting, in the first place? How do we help our viewers have these courageous conversations, but also conversations that lead them to where they're trying to go or resolve whatever issue? Because back to the quiet quitting, a lot of unsaid stuff could be resolved if people just talked about it.
Yeah.
For me, I think that we have to talk to ourselves first, right? Why are we going into a conversation with someone else and wanting their validation to what we already know is a problem? If I know there's a problem, I know that the problem may not start with me, but it's up to me to fix it. It's up to me to adjust to whatever I need to do to make sure that I'm comfortable, I'm at peace, and I'm happy. My peace will not be compromised. I've been in a place where this gentleman who was my upline manager, he used a term that I thought was disrespectful. And my resolve to that was I quit, because I don't have to put up with it. Now, everybody's not always in a position to make that decision, but my peace was what I was protecting. And God is so good. As soon as I hit the send button, another opportunity arose. And so you have to trust yourself. You have to bet on yourself. And guess what? The person that you may be having a problem with may be having a problem with themselves too. And so that's why I think the emotional intelligence part, the part of us having that conversation, that dialogue with ourselves to know that regardless of the outcome, because guess what? What if you go into the room and what if you have this conversation and the person you have this conversation with says, you know what, you're fired. Just because you were bold enough to say that you wanted to pivot or change or something wasn't going right. So we have to be prepared for all scenarios. And the best way that I have found to do that is to talk to myself first and get prepared for scenario A, B, C, D, and E. Once I did that, I was comfortable with whatever was going to take place because God got me. And thankfully, it has worked and it has happened.
I like that. Dr. Tierney.
One of the things we were talking earlier about the leadership style and what's your leadership style. I think a big piece of the leadership that I'm seeing that's just missing in a lot of arenas is that human factor. So if you are a leader and, you know, you're responsible for people, and again, this isn't just in a professional setting, this can be in your home, this can be in your neighborhood. Are you paying close enough attention to the people that God has given you to guide? So are you just looking at people as just, you know, cogs in a wheel, you know, because a lot of times if you pay close attention to your people, then you can see when the light goes out in their eyes. You can see when they're just doing the bare minimum or they're no longer speaking up. But if you're not paying attention to your people, then you won't see them quietly quit. You know, you won't see them quietly check out of that relationship, you know, or stop bringing up issues. And sometimes in our selfishness, we'll take their silence as, whew, thank God they finally stopped nagging. And you don't realize that what they're doing is get packing their bags right under your nose. And you don't know it because you haven't taken the other half of the responsibility for your leadership position. To whom much is given, much is required. So you can't just want this leadership position just for the clout, just for the title, just for the paycheck. You also have to care and love the people, or else God will take them from you, be it them quiet quitting or, you know what I'm saying, them just walking out the door loud quitting. So as leaders, this is something that we have to be mindful of. In our leadership, we have to care about the people. Now, in regard to confrontation, I think the biggest thing with that is we need to reframe our perspective of confrontation. When we say the word confrontation, most people grab their pearls and, oh my God, and we see it as a bad thing. Confrontation can be healthy. Growth honestly only happens in confrontation. I don't care what it is. When you go to the gym, every time you go into the gym, you are confronting them extra pounds that's on your body. You know, every time you lift a weight and it's heavy and it's what you are confronting your muscles with every pump of that weight that you lift. Confrontation is actually how we grow. If you don't confront that thing, you will never change that thing and you cannot transform that thing and you cannot become the best you. So when we look at confrontation through that lens and not from the, oh my God, but look at it as, okay, confrontation, this is an opportunity for me to grow. Then you look at it, okay, how do we have healthy confrontation? It don't mean we got to go in there and we got to be all ready to pew, 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 pew. If we get ready to go into a confrontation, like what is it that I need to learn? How can I help you learn? How can we both learn and grow after this conversation? Then you'll be able to see how confrontation can be a good thing if we structure it the right way, if we allow our communication to be healthy, if we built that trust that we talked about earlier, then we'll be able to walk into a situation and not have our palms sweaty. You know, we'll be able to walk into a conversation that may be a confrontation, looking for the opportunity to learn and grow instead of cower in fear.
Absolutely. When we come back, y'all, after the break, I want to dive into this conversation with Dr. Jennifer Bishop on her work, Enter to Lead, Exit to Learn. Yeah, some of y'all just show up for the purposes of showing up, trying to get a paycheck. But when we talk about how do we raise up this next generation of leaders, what do we want to instill in them? And then what is our expectation gap when you come? We'll be back in a moment after the break.
With medicine and science under attack, I want to keep you and your family informed and healthy. I'm Dr. Ebony Hilton, and I knew at the age of 8 that I wanted to be a doctor. So I studied hard and became the first African-American female anesthesiologist hired at the Medical University of South Carolina since its opening in 1824. And I always say I was made into a doctor, but I was born to be a mom. And as a new mom, wife, sister, daughter, and friend, I understand how frightening a medical crisis can be. I care for individuals on some of the worst days of their lives, and it's my mission to provide you with a safe space to gain clarity on issues affecting your mind, body, and soul. I recognize that there are health disparities, particularly as it pertains to race, and I want to help bridge the gap between you and your healthcare providers. Join me every Thursday for Second Opinion on the Black Star Network, where each week I'll invite experts from various medical fields to share the latest health news. We'll discuss topics such as the vaccine debate, mental and sexual health, medical bias, infertility, menopause, andropause, nutrition, and aging. Together with my medical colleagues, we aim to provide you with a second opinion. Don't miss it, Thursdays only on the Black Star Network.
Welcome back, everybody. And as you can tell by this robust conversation, there's a lot to learn about leading yourself first, because you have to be a leader of your own life before you can ever lead other people. Let's dive in with Dr. Jennifer Bishop and talk about her work, Enter to Lead, Exit to Learn. Tell us a little bit, Jennifer, about this book and how you're guiding not only this generation, but also the generation below us and those that are, getting to come into their own, to understanding their role in this leadership journey.
So there's a children's book series that my husband and I created called Enter to Learn, Exit to Lead. And it is also the slogan that we use for our academy. And it is really about entering into a place where you will be cultivated, you will thrive, you'll be loved, you will grow, you will build your emotional intelligence, and you will take all those attributes and you will exit this place and you will lead with tenacity, you will lead with sureness, you will lead knowing that you are capable and competent to do exactly what you have found your purpose in doing. And so we decided, that early on, we need to instill that in our children. We do a tremendous job and spend a lot of money trying to repair broken people, repair broken adults. How about we change the narrative and we talk to our children, the children who are a small percentage of us as a population, but they're 100% of our future. Let's take the time to build them up so that they are ready and capable and equipped to go into adulthood. And so it's a 5-book series. We based it off of our son and his journey into elementary school and him building friends and his friends having scenarios and how they develop their personalities, how they develop their postures, how they develop into who they're going to be while growing together. And so it's a beautiful series. He started off in elementary school. My son is getting ready to go to college pretty soon, so we'll probably expand it some. But it's something that we decided that it wasn't just about adults. We have to focus on the children who are depending on us to be adults. And it's been a tremendous journey.
Okay. So this generation that's entering into the workforce now, I'm going to go back probably 2 summers. And I recall this big to-do about an individual who showed up to a job interview wearing shorts. I mean, this is not the Ally McBeal season of any of our lives back in the 90s when people wore shorts and a blazer to work. I often wonder, have we failed a generation in sharing with them what the expectations are, but also the mindset around what it means to really professionally go to work? So for all you young people in your 20s and 30s who are going to add us, we're here for the smoke and you're also here to learn. So yeah, reach out to us and let us know, because that's what we're here for. Whether you're going to be entering into a corporate environment, starting your own business, going to a bank, trying to get money to start a business, whatever it is, there is an appropriate way to show up and the mindset that you need to have to get there. So Dr. Tierney, talk to us about the generation who is entering into the workforce and what are the expectations that we have as, women in our 50s and 60s when they show up to work. Okay, late 40s for y'all.
My eyebrows
on the way. For the generation in the 40s and 50s, y'all have a different expectation of show up. than those of us in our 60s. While at the same time, I know that when I show up in my 60s, there's some woman in her 70s and 80s like, did she really just? So we all have these expectations, but we do it without judging, because there's, you said, there's the character element, there is the approachability element, there is the, confidence and competence. All of those things play a big part in how we show up into the myriad of places where we find ourselves. So talk to us about this expectation gap, generationally, and how do we bridge that gap and train people and prepare them for readiness?
Yeah. Thank you for that age correction. I was like, she is putting me way above where I am in my 40s. But and the reason I point that out is because I'm what they call the bridge generation, not quite. I'm the tail end of Gen X and the I don't even say I'm a millennial, because I'm what they seasoned millennial. So I point that out because I am a part of that unique generation that's kind of the best of both worlds. I understand both sides of the coin. I understand that there are some areas and, aspects of traditional and kind of cultural things and old school things that still have its place. But at the same time, I'm all about pushing the envelope. I'm all about charting new courses. I'm all about, expressing yourself. I think where we have to find that middle ground that again, the people that are in my age group, 80, 81, 82, well, 79, 80, 81, 82, what we were able to do so seamlessly that a lot of other generations weren't, because we were right on the cusp of the technology, the computers, the cell. I had a pager and a cell phone, is that in certain places, in certain times, in certain things, in certain arenas, it's okay to wear the shorts. But in other places, in other times, in other situations, in other arenas, you need to put on a suit and tie, and knowing the distinction between the two, knowing how to read the room, so to speak, knowing the audience. And this is not to say that you do something that's inauthentic to you. You can still wear the suit and tie, and you can wear it in the way that only you would wear it, but you need to have some pants on. Or as my grandmama would say, you can put some breeches on and not walk in there, with some shorts. So this isn't about, stamping down the creativity or stamping down your unique identity, but it also is, you have to be aware that perception does play a part, particularly when we're walking into these professional settings. Before I opened my mouth today, before I said anything, Sugar, I know y'all look just like, oh, what is that around her neck? And you already was looking like, is that a tie? Is that a necklace? Is that rhinestones? Like, what she got on? So before I even opened my mouth to let you know what I was about, you were already looking at what I had on, and so making sure that we never forget that is still a very real aspect of the life that we, in the world that we live in. Making sure that you understand that I can't walk into this Fortune 500 company, wearing, a hoodie and a t-shirt, not unless you're Adam Sandler, and in the beginning, he didn't do that. Like there's a certain time and a place for everything. And I think the balance is understanding and learning when the time and where the place is for you to be able to, wear the things and not wear the things.
Dr. Bishop, you work with women on so many different levels, and these conversations are all interconnected. When we talk about what we expect from young people, what young people expect from us, do you feel or think in some ways that we have let them down? And in our ability to work on ourselves, because a lot of older women are like trying to figure out where they went wrong, trying to get themselves together, while at the same time, they're being asked to pour into the next generation without a clue of where to start. So have we failed a generation, or are we failing a generation of young women, young men that are coming into all these various spaces where we also find ourselves?
I won't say that we're failing. I'll say that we are actively learning. And in my active learning, I was given the opportunity, but I wasn't always given the strategy. I was given the position to produce an outcome, but I wasn't equipped with the process. And so what I did was I had to realize where the gap was, where was the potential for the ball to drop, because I didn't want the ball to drop with me. because I remember the persons who had given me these opportunities, and I did not want to fail, or I didn't want to fail them. And so I think we have to stop, right? And we have to figure out what did not work for us so that we don't pass that same baton to the next person with the same elements of a rushedness or putting them in positions that they're not prepared for yet. We have to do a better job of strategizing as to what the next looks like. We have to do a better job of accepting accountability and responsibility as we place that same onusness on someone else. And when we do that, I think we change the narrative of where we can go and how fast we can get there. It'll stop being a repair job. It'll be a prepare job. And as we prepare them for the future, they are then in turn preparing the next for what is coming next. And so there's a place where we have to, instead of keep passing the buck, we got to hold it. Let's fix it, whatever it is. Let's fix what it is so that when we give it to the next person, it's giving it to them so that their emotional intelligence won't be disrupted because we haven't found ours.
Yeah. Dr. J, if I can jump in on
jump in, please.
Because I think what you said, Dr. Bishop, is spot on. And I think to just add to that, it's making sure that we all understand, regardless, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, that we're all still learning. I think once we really allow ourselves to embrace that lifelong learner status, then the older people can learn from the younger people. The younger people will be more open to learning from the older people, because all of us are on this journey of becoming. No one arrives. But I think what happens is when the younger people are like, you can't tell me nothing because you don't da. And then the older people are, well, I've been here because I'm 65. So you got to do what I say. And it's like that then creates walls, and it again goes back to the beginning of what we were talking about with that trust. In order to get the younger generation to really lean into what the older generation can teach them, there has to be a trust that's built, and vice versa. So I think once all of us, regardless of the age, regardless of the generation, really accept the fact that we are all learning. No one has this thing completely figured out. I don't care how long you've been on this earth, and you remain in a teachable space, then that helps all of us to continue to grow and thrive and become.
I like what both of you are saying, because it reminds me of, that competency-based respect, where it's like we're mutually benefiting from the things that are happening around us in the family, in our organizations, in the community, in the workforce. That competency-based leadership is that mutual respect where things are mutually beneficial and where we're equally pouring into each other. Because, when computers and technology and AI is all on the scene, people are relying heavily on the younger generation to kind of show them how things are done, while at the same time we're teaching how to manage money and resources. I'm going to go ahead and go to a break so we can have a full conversation in Block 4. When we come back after the break, let's talk about what competency-based respect looks like, and maybe versus rather passing the torch, we're sharing the torch so that everyone collaborates in a way that is beneficial to what the gain should be for the culture. We'll talk about that more when we're back after the break.
Decade of love, joy, and power. Black Voters Matter is 10 years old, and we are just getting started. This is love with a purpose. This is Black joy in motion. This is unstoppable power. Across campuses, neighborhoods, and back roads, let's go! We show up not just to vote, but to be seen, to be heard, to belong. We ride together. We organize together. We remind each other that our voices matter, because they always have. Black Voters Matter is about more than ballots. It's about housing and healthcare, clean water and living wages, education, reproductive freedom, and dignity. It's about turning pain into action, turning belief into movement, turning community into power. We don't wait to be invited. We bring the energy. We bring the love. We bring the people. Because when Black communities come together, we don't just survive, we thrive. This is how change happens. This is how history moves. We organize, we build, we win.
Welcome back, everyone. And as you can tell, learning with each other so that we can grow together, because more of us are living longer and more people are being born. So how do we live on this earth together, ladies, in such a way where we're benefiting all the generations together? Let's talk about that. Because, every generation pours into the next generation. If we're honest, we all learned something from our big mama, our grandmother, our great-great-grandmother, and our mothers. And now we've got generations of aunties who are pouring into not only our non-blood relatives, but also our blood relatives. Because what Dr. Tierney said, when you get to a certain age, people start looking to you for types of wisdom that maybe they're not getting in their own spaces. So what does wisdom look like today? If I can ask that question. And I know it's loaded because we are wise in many areas. Mm-hmm. And each of you have talked about looking within to find where you're wise. And then that's where you pull from to give to other people. So think about that for a second and say, where are you wise? And how are you using it to pour into people who come into your circle?
I want to go and I'm gonna answer that in the opposite direction. I'm gonna tell you what wisdom is not.
Okay.
Wisdom is not age.
Preach.
It is not a number. And I think a lot of times, particularly the older generation, get that wrong and think that just because you've been on this earth for 70, 80, 60, 50 rotations of the sun, that you're wise. You can be, exactly as my grandmama said, an old fool. But just because you went around the sun 50 times don't mean you was paying attention as you was going around that sun. So you may have made that same mistake 50 times, and that is not wisdom. Okay. And so I really want to say that because I'm seeing that quite a bit. And what that does, it then starts to discredit the wisdom that might be in a 20-year-old. There might be a 20-year-old, a 25-year-old, a 30-year-old that their discernment is on point and they are being overlooked simply because they don't have the right age, that their number isn't high enough and you ain't been here long enough, And so I want to make sure that I touch on that because I think we are overlooking a lot of wisdom and what wisdom is simply because of something that truly wisdom is not. Wisdom is not age. It is not a number. It is not, defined by how long you've been on this earth.
Mm-hmm. I can respect that. I was a little offended when she said 60s, but I got over it real fast. I'm new to that name, so it's perfectly okay. I was one of those kids, who was told that I was wise beyond my years, but I also was told that I talked too much. And so I was like, well, maybe they go hand in hand. And I just let it ride because, 8, 9, 10, it was like, how does she know what she knows? And it's because of my relationship with God, that discernment, learning how to pray, listening to old people talk and getting some wisdom without opening my mouth all the time. So you learn to be an observant child so that way you can understand how the world works and then how you fit in. And then you can speak on things that are well beyond your age because you've said some time to sit down, as we like to say about around here.
That's it. Being in the house, being raised by my grandmama and my granddaddy. People would look at me outside. That baby been here before. She been here before, And I would tell you something else to that, Dr. Jacquie, because I had a whole moment on the other end of that for the first time where my niece, we was just having a conversation and she's getting ready. She's a senior, getting ready to go off to college. And so whenever they get to that age, that's when they come talk to me. Okay, well, what I need and what it is. And so I asked her, I said, okay, so what is it that you want to do when you grow up? What is it that professionally, and then I said, well, no, back that question up. Tell me the type of life that you want to live. And this sweet baby, she my sweet baby today. My sweet baby, she looked at me and she said, I want the kind of life that you got. And I said, well, what kind of life is that? And do you know that she sat right there and told me everything about me? Things that I didn't even know that she was paying attention to. And it had nothing to do with what I had. It had nothing to do with the things, and everything to do with how she saw me handling and governing myself, how she saw me interacting with other people, how she saw me going after the things that I wanted in life, how she saw me managing my business, how I loved on her and her little brothers, how I showed up, for the family, for her. And that's what she said. She said, so I want to have a profession that allows me to have the type of life and be the kind of person that you are. And it took everything in me that I bust out crying. Okay. And so I bring that up because when we're talking about wisdom, it's like, where is the fruit of your wisdom? Is your wisdom bearing fruit? Are the way, because wisdom is shown in the way that you live your life. It's in the decisions that you make. It's in the fruit that your life bears. And so for someone that is 17 years old to look at me at 44 and say, I want to be like you when you grow up, you can't tell me that I'm not walking in wisdom, because that baby just told me. And she has said to people that ain't walking in wisdom and she don't want to be like them. So when we're talking about wisdom, it's like we got to look at this from the standpoint of what it's not, but also in the fruit that wisdom actually bears.
Absolutely. Dr. Bishop, wise for sure, beyond her years. How does that work for you, and how are you pouring that in to others?
So I think leadership looks different. Well, let me start here. Going back to something you said earlier, when I was a child, I would ask why. And if you ask why, you got in trouble of, don't question me, don't do this and don't do that, all the kind of things that went along with it. But then, I realized back then leadership felt like proving yourself to somebody. And today I think leadership is more about building, because those why questions that we had as children were the tidbits for us figuring out how this thing called life worked. And as we were watching it unfold, whether it be for ourselves or somebody else, we weren't given the ability, the environment, so that we can question, why are these things happening, so that I can begin to devise how I'm supposed to maneuver in it. And so what we've done, we handicapped ourselves, we stagnated our growth. And so now we're, as adults, trying to figure out why things are happening, what these things are, when I think that our development was stunted because we didn't allow the why questions to happen when we were younger. And so now that we're having to rebuild ourselves while building others, we're trying to fly the plane while building the plane. We're also trying to teach people how to pilot the plane all at the same time, because we didn't take the time to realize that questions weren't disrespect. Questions were about us figuring out this thing called life and how to navigate it for the ones that were around us. So growth is important, but it's also important to know that we are continuously growing regardless of your stage and age. I don't care what decade you're in right now. We still have to grow, because you're not the same person you were yesterday. You're not going to be the same person after you listen to this segment that you're going to be tomorrow. So allow ourselves what we did not have as children. Our parents probably didn't have, our grandparents didn't have it. We weren't given the latitude to be able to grow where we were. And so now we're having to pick up the pace, and we're having to accelerate faster than we probably would have, because more is on the line. We don't have the luxury of making the mistakes and stepping in the cracks that turn into canyons. We can't do that as we move into this next level, because so much is on our shoulders. So much is weighted down by the decisions we make today that we weren't prepared to grow into, because we weren't given the latitude to ask why. Not disrespectfully, just to understand why. Why do I feel this way? Why do we go left instead of right? Because if we don't take the time to figure things out, it gets put on a shelf. And the shelf, one day you're going to have to pull that off the shelf, but it's immature. It's not ready for the processes that your grown self may be in, but you weren't given the ability to grow into it. And so now some of the things that we're tasked to do, we may feel like failures. We may feel like we're ill-equipped because we did not get the ability or the latitude to grow in the stage we were supposed to. So how do we solve it? Let's stop Let's
So
stop
let's
so
do
we
that.
can grow other people.
So let's talk about that in the last minutes that we have. We haven't done this in a while. We usually tell or give our audience a tip, a takeaway, or something not to do. So let's do, what is it that people should unlearn? We live our lives a lot on self-limiting beliefs that a thing has to be a certain way or it can only go one way. And we don't really, give people the ability to innovate and be creative and to think outside the box because we want them to do it this way because that's the way it's always been done. So what is it that we would like anybody watching to consider unlearning as a way to move their lives forward if that may fall in their space or their sphere that's holding them back? What do they need to unlearn?
I would tell you to unlearn not trusting yourself. Unlearn that you are not, that your existence is the quality of all of the mistakes you've made. Let's change how we talk to ourselves. Let's change how we let other people talk to us, but that starts with how you talk to yourself. So we need to unlearn that we don't deserve the grace that we give other people. We need to unlearn that just because we know everything about ourselves, the good, the bad, and the indifferent, that the indifferent and the bad outweigh the good. Unlearn that so that we can experience everything God has for us. If he has forgiven us, why haven't you forgiven yourself? We've got to unlearn that.
Absolutely. Dr. T.
Unlearn the idea of age. Age can be so limiting on either side. You've heard me say it. Just because you are of a certain age does not mean that you embody wisdom and that you are a wise person. Just because you are of a certain age does not mean that you are a good leader and that you know everything. Just because you are a certain age does not mean that you are not wise. You might be young and very, very wise and very discerning. Just because you are of a certain age does not mean that it's over for you. Does not mean that you can't start, right now where you are at. Just because you are of a certain age, let's take that out of the way that we function. We use age as a determining factor for too much stuff. And we need to really just let that go and understand that it can happen at any age. Wisdom can happen at any age. Leadership, love, it does not matter. It can happen at any age. So age is not the limiting factor that we believe. So let's unlearn that.
When we come back after the break, I'll give my reflection.
I'm Brittany Noble, Midwest-born, HBCU educated with experience in newsrooms across the country. Well, I've teamed up with Roland Martin to bring to you The Breakdown. This isn't just news. It's our stories, our voice, our community. Join me for The Breakdown, Monday through Friday at midday, only on the Black Star Network.
Welcome back, everyone. And as you can tell, learning how to lead your own life, it's filled with a lot of things, but one thing is not, it's complex. It just requires you to step into your own life, take a good introspective look at yourself, and determine where you want to go next. Bye now.